only way to put all of what we're witnessing, especially now, because as I said before, this is the longest judicial blue balling I've ever seen. It's taken over 8 years to build this case. That's ridiculous because the case is actually cut and dry. But before I start telling the story, a little background so you have some context. Obama has known the Bushes for his entire life. Bush Sr. knew his daddy, who worked for some Asian government or Filipino government or something like that, who was connected to the seedier side of politics, shall we say. And back then, Bush Sr. used to carry around candy in his pockets, and every time he seen young berries, later to become Barack, he'd give him a piece of candy or a couple pieces of candy. Years later, when the Obamas would meet up with the Bushes and Bush Sr. was there or whatever, he would always hand Michelle some candy. It's kind of an inside thing because they're so tight. Well, you got to go from there to Bush Sr.'s statements about the New World Order and 1,000 points of light and all the things that happened since his presidency. And then fast forward past a bunch of stuff to 2016. Like I said yesterday, if you could hear it over the exhaust, what they did was wrong, illegal, and all that fun stuff. But that's not the real scandal. The real scandal is why they did it. And for that, you have to go back to the hacking of the DNC during the 2016 election. Initially, they didn't know what to do because it was an inside job. Somebody had downloaded information from their servers and files onto a flash drive. But they hem-hawed around for a little while and they said, it was the Russians! And they tried to push that whole narrative because they couldn't have it come out that someone had gotten inside of all of their important confidential files and seen what they were up to. In particular, why it was that Hillary got the nod over Bernie Sanders in 2016. Well, move down the road a little bit to where it becomes fairly obvious, at least wise to them, that Trump could potentially win. And they're hem-hawing around, don't know what to do, and then all of a sudden somebody says from the back, it was the Russians! Well, on the surface, that seems like a pretty good idea because it reinforces everything they were pushing around the story for the DNC hack, but there is no actual evidence. Everything that they needed to make that case, they had to make up or it didn't exist. And since that, all hell has broken loose behind the scenes. Because the biggest threat is a threat of their own doing. They let Donald Trump run. They laughed. They said, yeah, come on in, throw your hat in the ring. And then they go through all of this, up to and including trying to throw the man in jail and even shooting at him. And now here we are. Exactly what they were trying to avoid has happened through their own fault, proving something I've been saying all along. These people don't belong in charge of anything, up to and including a hot dog stand. Because if you let them run things too long and they do what they do with their lack of forethought, these kind of things are always going to happen. Damn it. The reality of it is, with liberal policies, they're always framed that they're going to help people and that people will benefit from the implementation of what it is they're doing or want to do. When the reality of it is, sooner or later, somebody always gets hurt. Because there wasn't enough thought put into it. It was just something someone threw out there, and they went with it. You can't govern like that, and apparently you can't frame a guy like Donald Trump like that without it all blowing up in your face. But like I said a long time ago, why it was necessary for somebody to hold our hands and walk us through all this bullshit so we could understand something we already knew. That this country needs a divorce from the deep state because this shit ain't working.